Today on the breakdown, Xuan Liu makes an appearance. It's been a while, Xuan. Where you been, Xuan? I'll tell you where she's been. She's been playing at the Lodge. That's where she's been, and I guess other places, but mostly the Lodge. And she is going to play an absolutely bananas cash game hand against two other players where we sort of can't believe this happened. We sort of can't believe it went the way it did, and it requires examination, much like, cholera does, So we're going to get in there. We're going to look, oh, that's a weird one, Grant. You don't understand? Oh, no, don't examine the cholera. Why would you make that face when I say cholera demands examination? Are you against medicine now? Are you anti-medicine? I don't know. Very few people are against medicine. Grant's against medicine, people. He's an anti-medicine. That's fine. You do you, buddy. We support you. We support you, not your beliefs, but you. Anyway, it's a bananas hand. Of course, everyone's got thousands and thousands of dollars, and of course, it all gets in there somehow. Well, not all of it, actually. Not all of it gets in there, and that is part of the examination. We're going to get into it right now with our little tongs and our cotton swabs on the breakdown with Grant Dennison and Jonathan Levy.
You misread me. You don't understand. I'm not anti-medicine. I'm pro-cholera. And I don't want you to take a closer look at it. Just let it do its fucking thing, man. Just chill. Just don't look at it. Just don't look. All right?
That is my bad. Pro-cholera. Yeah. So what does that entail exactly, being pro-cholera?
Don't ask. Don't look. Stop.
I'm not. That's pro-cholera.
I asked you to stop. I've already asked you to stop. Well, and you keep going.
I thought...
Is this a HIPAA violation? It's probably a HIPAA violation, whatever you're doing.
It's an OSHA violation. It's very different. Very different.
You know what? They both result in a strong reprimand and no real consequences. So enjoy.
Sure. There's got to be people in the world who hear OSHA violation but think they hear ocean violation and don't know what that is or don't understand that. Yeah. I'm sure there's a reasonable percentage of Americans who think it's ocean violation, not OSHA, right?
Yeah.
And God bless those people. That's all I'll say. God bless them. One of them may be playing in this hand.
Cholera bless them.
There it is. That's how pro-cholera advocates show their colors, right?
Yeah.
It comes out like that. Yeah. All right. That's what I
sometimes we can't help it. We're just so passionate. We try to keep it under wraps because we know it's an unpopular opinion at large, and the government's going to be mad at us if we try to spread cholera.
And Twitter's going to be all aflame if we do this.
Yeah.
Social media going crazy.
Hey, we have some things to talk about. A couple announcements I want to get off my chest. Our Discord has been reworked a little bit.
Yes.
It's a little prettier now, thanks to our, as it states on Discord, our long-suffering intern has reorganized Discord. There's a Table Talk section, which is our new show. Some of you have probably watched or listened to Table Talk. We're putting it out as a podcast and on YouTube. It's a much more casual show where the first one was just us talking about a hand that I played. That's what the first couple are going to be. And we're going to do a lot of other stuff with Table Talk too. It's 10 minutes or less, and it's going to be fun.
Okay. It's not a much more casual show. This is the more casual show. We're doing cholera jokes on this show. Table Talk, we immediately get into the hand. The first episode of Table Talk starts with, the words are, I have ace queen suited in the cutoff, and we just start. I think it's the opposite, brah.
Okay, fine. Whatever. What I mean by that is, it is essentially conversations that Jonathan and I would have without there being a podcast. Whereas this is only a conversation we would have with a podcast. We're never going to break down a hand for 30 minutes that other people played without it being a podcast. Table Talk is more in line with what we would do on the break of a tournament, just chatting for 10 minutes. Yeah.
Or just before we actually record, you might tell me a hand or I might tell you a hand that we played, and this is how we do it. So you actually get that. And what we're going to do, which Grant alluded to, is also hopefully have your hands. So you guys might come on the show or you might write in, and then we'll actually discuss your hands as they happen and have just our natural reactions to them. Again, in a 10 minutes or less format. We're really excited about it. We think it's great. If you haven't checked it out, do check it out.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool to do some of your hands, and you can actually be on the show, like Jonathan said, and talk with us about your hands. And we will not know the hand before the show. We'll have our long-suffering intern vet the hands to make sure we get something interesting. And then on the show, it'll be our genuine reactions without us having any sort of pre-understanding of what's going on in the hand. So that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, so check it out. Check out Discord to see some table talk stuff and suggest some hands from your own life if you'd like. And Discord's also a great place to suggest hands for this show, the breakdown, and, chat about other things. So go there. There's a link in the description of this podcast or video. And join us there. We're going to make it the greatest place to be on earth of all places.
Yep.
So much cholera.
Very good. All right. Is there any more announcements or is that it?
I think that's it. We have a website coming soon. That's kind of interesting, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, I don't talk about that till it exists, man. Come on.
We're already paying for it. There's going to be a central hub for all of the poker guys stuff. There might be some new types of content there too. We'll figure out some stuff with that, but that's for the future. Get excited though. Put it on your calendar as an unknown date, but just mark off 2025 as Poker Guys website. That's all you should do. All right. This hand, which is just absurd, needs to be spoken of, as Jonathan said. It was suggested on Discord by Chalks. I don't know if Chalks has gotten one through before, but
I don't think so.
Welcome to the team, Chalks. Congratulations on getting this hand.
Chalks, we pulled the goalie and you made it on in. You scored, you got it through,
Yeah, congratulations. It wasn't Ruthino for once.
It's a birth control joke.
Oh.
That's what that was.
Now I see it. Yeah, okay, good for you. Congratulations on your birth control joke. Thanks. So this game has more blinds than it has players. It's 5, 10, 10, 25, 50. So more than half of the table is in a blind, but that's how it goes in these games sometimes. It's initially a 5, 10, 10 game at the lodge that they're televising, but then, people have
Straddles.
More than $10,000 in front of them in lots of cases, so the game got bigger.
Yep.
And I guess Xuan Liu is probably the biggest name in this game, having watched this hand. She's kind of the main attraction here. She's a good player. For those who don't know of her, she's not like a super well-known player, but she's been around for a while, doing well in tournaments and cash.
Yeah, long time.
Played against her once. She was tough. It was the weirdest, toughest 1K ever in like 2017 at the Golden Nugget. Somehow it was like the toughest 1K of all time. I don't know why. It was
the toughest. I think you could up the buy-ins. That's one of the toughest tournaments I've ever played in, at least for relative to the time period. Anyway, I don't know if it would still feel like that now, but that's
of course, like
better,
toughest at the time. Yeah,
yeah. I think I've never played anything as tough as that in my life.
It's the second toughest tournament I've ever played. The toughest was a Tuesday World Series of Poker 3K.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
It was tough. I cashed.
Anyway.
Hey. All right. Xuan Liu has $15,000 in front of her, and she has pocket aces. So she's in the hijack, which is really, I think, under the gun at this point. I don't know. It's close to it. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. It might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you play pocket aces from any position, so she's going to go ahead and 4x the biggest straddle. No, 8x, excuse me. She goes to $400,
right. Sure.
Which is interesting. I guess it's just because there's so many blinds in there and stacks are deep, so it makes some sense.
It's Texas. They are not interested in folding in Texas really ever at all, I think.
Yeah.
So she knows that, so she can go much bigger. Also, this gives her a chance. If she does a more normal race size, like let's say to $200, she may have like 4 callers. If she goes to 400, she's likely to get at least 1 caller unless everyone really has trash, and she may 1 or 2, which is more what you're looking for with aces, right?
Yeah. Well, there might be more than 2 players in this hand.
Yep.
The next player to act is Corvette Mike, and he plays like a guy who would name himself Corvette Mike on a stream. That's about what I can say about Corvette Mike. Based on this hand. He likes Corvettes. He proves it with his attire. He has 13.7K in front of him and Queen Jack of clubs. He makes the call. That's totally fine.
Sure.
Something of note, the guy in the $50 big straddle has $1,400. So he's a very short stack for this game. Do you think we should just fold Queen Jack of clubs with Xuan opening in the first position and that player with such a short stack? We're going to get squeezed out a lot, I feel.
Oh, because the guy will shove and then Xuan can just re-raise and push us out. That is a really, really good point. I think maybe we should just be folding or 3-betting this hand so that way we push Xuan out much more of the time rather than the other way around. Yeah, it feels like we're just lighting $400 on fire too often because of that. That's a really good point.
I get it, though. I mean, we have position. We have a beautiful hand, Queen Jack suited, but this is almost like a tournament spot with the stack of the largest straddle, which makes it a little bit different. So I think a 3-bet is probably better than a fold. It's just such a good hand.
I would 3-bet this hand, I think.
Yeah.
In Texas. She is opening, first to act at a full table. So it's not great to that her range is pretty strong here, I would think. But still, I think especially with the person with the 1400 stack or whatever, I think we just 3-bet and put all the pressure back on her. We're just going to lose her so much of the time, right? It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then now we're going to have to play heads up against that stack a lot. And we have queen high, but whatever. It's not the end of it. It's $1,400 total, and it's fine. And
if Xuan ends up folding,
right.
if Xuan ends up folding, it's obviously a good situation for us. Then even if we're against Ace 10, it's a great spot EV wise.
Oh yeah, Ace 10 we'd be thrilled, right? It's just like the Ace Queens and the Ace Jacks of the world, but so be it. Whatever. And by 3-betting, actually, we might knock Ace Jack out anyway. I mean, we won't.
That's true.
No,
not from the $1,400 stack.
Right.
No.
Right. In Texas.
That guy is also in Texas, yeah. So speaking of Ace Queen, the kid is the next person to enter the pot from the straddle. So the kid has put in 25, has 21.1K in front of him. And this is not Daniel Negreanu. It's just a guy who names himself the kid. Has Ace Queen of spades. What do you do here with Ace Queen of spades? You are second to last act here. You're the $25 straddle with the raise and the call.
I think we could do one of two things, and they're both reasonable. I think we can call with the intention of if the big blind, the $50 straddle shoves, we could be looking to put pressure on everyone else with this hand later. We might get pushed out of the pot a lot too. I would think Xuan is often going to re-raise if this person goes in, and then we have to decide, are we just going with this hand? Maybe we decide we're just going with this hand, because if she re-raises, she's re-raising much wider than she might normally do it, right? She's going to be
she could have eights or
right.
Ace 10 even, something like that,
Ace Jack suited, whatever. So I think it's actually pretty reasonable to be like, I'm just not folding this hand unless something crazy happens. If it goes all in in front of me, maybe I fold Ace Queen suited. But otherwise, I could decide to call here. I underrep my hand, and then I get to really punish Xuan for making what is a pretty seemingly obvious play with most of her range, which would be to re-raise, right? Yeah. To isolate and have all this dead money in there, which is incredible. So that's one way to go. That's kind of fancy, and the $50 straddle often isn't going to shove, right?
Yeah. Sometimes they mostly just have bad hands and fold.
Right. So the other play, which seems very obvious and straightforward, is just to put in the 3-bet right now. I think as a standard play, that's probably what we should do. I think we should just raise. The only reason not to do it is if Xuan sized differently, because she has a big hand right now, because she did 8x it. I wonder if she's just it doesn't matter. No one's paying enough attention. I made X again.
It's also apparently the last hand of the stream, or at least the last orbit.
Oh, well, that makes me want to raise more also then.
Yeah.
I think we should just put in the 3-bet mostly, and once in a while make a sneaky call. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I lean more towards 50-50 between call and 3-bet.
Oh, okay.
I'm fine with either. I think unsuited, I'd much prefer a 3-bet, but it's so playable as a suited hand.
It is. It is.
I don't mind flatting here. And that is what the kid does.
Would you be doing that with the intention of basically getting it in against Xuan if the $50 person moves in?
If I were playing theoretically correctly, yes.
Okay.
At this point in the game, I think the game is much bigger than anybody anticipated with the two straddles, and the commentators are talking a little bit about how the kid is up the most, and I think this is a really big stack in front of the kid for what he's used to, based on how they're talking about it. So in theory land, yes. I don't know if that's what would happen. There might be a fear.
He may not be doing that for sure. He's probably protecting his stack by calling here instead of 3-betting in the first place, most likely, right? Most likely. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, anyway, he does call. And then the guy with $1,400, Dinho, out of the $50 straddle, actually has 2 kings.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
what a deal for everybody, really. Xuan.
Easiest move-in of all time.
Yeah.
It's by far. Okay, as Xuan,
here we go.
How do you approach this?
I mean, if we just call here, we're going to get 2 callers behind us. We assume almost all the time, right?
Yeah.
Do we really want to play a hand out of position to 2? Oh, I guess we're not out of position, are we? We're out of position to one player and we're in position to the other. 3 ways. It's okay to do it. The stack to pot ratio wouldn't be that bad. But I think the standard play here is just to put in a 4-bet. Also, that's what we'd be doing with most of our range anyway, right? I understand we could just deviate because we have aces and think like these guys are calling way too light and they're going to call again way too light and let's go. There, you want to keep the bad players in. And I'm not saying these guys are bad players, but there's something that happens in a moment, like literally right now, that's going to lead me to think Xuan thinks these guys are not great. And it's that she does just call, right?
Yeah.
So she's like, I got to keep the fish in. They're going to make the really big mistakes. Like if this was, T1000, the guy who plays, he looks, I think if he was behind her, she's much more apt to re-raise here because he's not going to make a $10,000 mistake later in the hand anyway. So what's the point of keeping him in? Like, let's just push him out or get more money in right now and change the stack to pot ratio and make it even better for us, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's another reason to maybe flat is if it feels like either of the two are likely to back raise. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an interesting possibility. If we call and then Corvette Mike calls, I mean, I think it would be the play with the actual hands that are set up that the kid should be raising, Yeah. So a call is kind of fancy and cool that way too. I don't know how often it really happens in these games that they're really doing that. There's some at the higher stakes games at the Lodge. There's certain guys like Taras, who I think absolutely are going to show up and do that kind of stuff. Like the really good players or the tough. I don't know if he's really good. He's not, but he's tough.
Unsafe players, the unsafe players.
He's absolutely unsafe. And then there's a bunch of really good players too, who are definitely going to be able to do that sometimes with some of their hands. Be able to jam there. I'm not sure in this game if we're really going to have that. And if the kid is at his max for like how much money he's willing to put in because he's up so much. We're blocking the kinds of hands he's going to want to be moving in with, like some of them. Obviously, he could have tens, I guess.
Jacks, yeah.
I mean, he could have. Usually you'd think jacks are going to just 3-bet.
If it's the last hand of... I mean, we're making a lot of assumptions here, but if it's the last hand of the night and he's like trying to protect his stack, he's probably just going to call with those anyway. He's probably not going to back raise.
Right. Yeah. So, I don't know. So my inclination is mostly just to re-raise here. And especially with 2 players still in behind us. If there was one and they were bad, I'd be much more interested in just calling. And like, let's let the players going to make a big mistake in the pot rather than not.
I think I agree. But, Xuan's been at this table and we haven't.
Yes.
She's very good and she decides to call. So this is just a spot where she's willing to accept the variance of this play for the upside of it.
I think it's really cool, and I trust her instincts on that. So she knows who these 2 guys are better than we do. Like you're saying, we don't know anything about these guys really. I think if she thinks this is the right play, it can't be bad. I don't know if it's the best play or not, but it's at least perfectly fine, if not good. So great, whatever.
Yep. Corvette Mike is basically forced into a call. Like sometimes the kid behind is going to back raise, but Corvette Mike has position on the table, and it's like a really good price in Queen Jack of clubs, so you just have to call.
You're calling. And
the kid does not back raise, luckily for the kid.
Luckily for him, but it's such a good spot to do it. It's such an incredible spot. Like, you just move in and pick up all the money right now. It's so good. Anyway, whatever. The kid calls.
And in a game that started as a 5-10-10 game, we have a 6K pot heading to the flop.
Right on.
Which is 3 of spades, 4 of spades, Jack of spades. The kid flops the nuts with ace, queen of spades. Xuan has 2 aces, obviously not with the ace of spades. 2 kings for the all-in guy. He's basically dead. And then we have top pair for Corvette Mike with queen jack of clubs.
This is insane that we have 4 players and all of them have top pair or better.
Yeah.
And 3 of them have better than top pair. That is crazy.
All right.
Here we are. Okay.
So this is a situation that doesn't come up that often in cash games. But how do you approach this as the kid? It's a dry side pot. There's nobody to c-bet. There's no c-better, right? Like the guy who moved in doesn't have any more chips.
Right.
So,
I mean, Xuan is still the natural person who's got like the strongest range right now, right? Because she's the original raiser. She only called, but we also called, but she's still the under the gun raiser. So in theory, if someone was going to take a stab, they would. But like you're right. If Xuan has ace king, she's without a spade in her hand, she ain't betting, and she doesn't have the ace of spades. We know that, right? There's just no real point to like chasing everyone out here. So you're right. So what are we supposed to do? Okay, we can check or we can lead. Leading is a lot of the time if we lead, we're just going to win the pot right now, and that sort of sucks.
Yeah. I mean, what are we hoping happens though? Like if we check, it's mostly checking around. Like a lot of the time it's checking around with the hand that we have. It's, you know, somebody could have a set of jacks. That's possible. Somebody could have a set of other things, I guess. 3s or 4s are possible, but
I mean,
less likely.
People are still likely to bet top pair or better, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd think.
But Xuan does not really rate to have better than top pair here, based on the fact that she flatted she does, but you wouldn't think she has queens, kings, or aces here, or even jacks. So Xuan, you think the best hand Xuan has is like ace jack right now, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I guess she could have like queen 10 of spades.
She could have a set.
King 10 of spades. I guess somebody could have flopped a slightly worse flush. She can have a set too, you're right. Anyone can have a set here. But almost no one can have a set of jacks, basically, right? It's like really hard for anyone to have a set of jacks.
Yeah.
So if we check, it's often going to check around, like you're saying. That sucks to lose a street of value. But if we bet, it's often going to just go fold, and we're just going to collect a nice pot, but not like the pot that maybe we could win. I think I want to check. Like if we had ace queen with just the ace of spades, so ace queen and the queen's the queen of diamonds, we might be looking to check raise this spot sometimes, right? Even though it's a dry side pot, we still we could get them to put a little money in, then blow them off the hand, and we have reasonable equity against whatever the guy has there, and we don't have to put any more money in. Like that's a pretty good spot, right? And we're okay getting a lot of money in too with ace queen with the ace of spades. That's okay. So maybe we'll check raise the nuts too. I think I want to check raise. I think. What do you think? I don't know, man.
I think check raise is just gonna a check raise is it's a super unbalanced thing, but I think a check raise is going to work too much, basically. It's going to be too effective if you have ace queen with the ace of spades. So it's like a super good play in expectation of reality with that hand. But with this hand, it just chases your action away, and that's not what you want. I know that's not balanced and it's not theoretically sound, but I think that's how it works.
It's hard to get action no matter what, though, right? Like if someone has a hand that they can fold to a check raise, they're just not going to put it more than one street in most of the time. Especially when you're three ways and it's a dry side pot. It's just so hard to get money out of people here.
What you really have to hope for is that somebody makes trip jacks on the turn and doesn't make a boat. That's like the best way to make money.
What we're hoping for really is king jack with the king of spades, right? Like that's the dream. Because now we have them drawing essentially dead, but they have a lot of reason to stick around.
Yeah.
So we could target hands like that. I think I'm inclined to go for the check raise because people are probably going to bet top pair or better anyway. Anything that's a threat to us, which is like two pair or better, they're probably going to bet. If someone has something, if we check raise, cool, we get to make a real pot here. And if they don't, at least we pick up a little something. If the times when they choose to bet. If they're not going to choose to bet, they're probably folding to our bet anyway when we bet into a dry side pot. So I think I want to go for the check raise, but you make a reasonable point that maybe check call, which I think is where you're leading to, not just bet out. Maybe better because then you give them at least a chance to improve sometimes, right? That's the other piece, which we would be taking away. Although it depends on how much we make it and what's in their hand. If they have a spade in their hand and they have queen jack with I don't think it's beyond Corvette Mike to have queen jack. Oh, well, you can't have the queen of spades, but you certainly have king jack off with the king of spades.
Yeah,
and so can Xuan. I think they both can have that.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. It's
not
like,
too much there.
Obviously, it's great to flop the nuts, but it feels like a situation where it's really hard to get paid.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
So the kid checks.
Sure.
What do you want to do with Xuan with two aces, no spade here?
I think we're supposed to bet.
Clean up equity.
Yeah, it's not crazy to check by any means. It's fine to check, I think. You get to see what Corvette Mike does. If Corvette Mike bets, you get to see what the kid does. You also get to let one card come off, and that also cleans up equity in its own way, right? Where people who have one spade, like the king of spades, or in this case the ace of spades, they're only going to have one card to come if we start putting pressure on the turn. Right now, they can check raise us. We're going to have tougher decisions, and they have much more equity in the pot, just even with the naked ace of spades, or any spade against us for that matter. So we can cut their equity in half, basically, by checking once. I still think I just want to bet and clean it up and get value from those single spade hands rather than not get value from them a lot, right? And get value from a jack or even two tens with the 10 of spades or two nines with the 9 of spades, which I think we'll get probably one street from at least, which we could do on the turn too, in fairness. We can get that one street on the turn. I think I want to bet, though. What do you think? Stack to pot isn't that big.
I feel like both of these flop decisions are so hard, both so far. Like the kids and Xuan's. Like, I think if we're Xuan, we can bet. If we bet, we want to go pretty small, maybe like $1,500 or something like that. We don't need to bet big. Go much bigger than that.
I agree.
I'm fine with checking too. Like if as Xuan we think we're by far the best player in the hand, we like taking more passive approach is, I think, more profitable when you are far superior to your opponents, because you can get some information that way, and like they're going to give away more than you are, and you can make exploitative decisions based on that one way or the other. Maybe that's what Xuan's thinking, because she ends up checking.
Okay, not unreasonable by any means.
Corvette Mike on essentially the button with top pair is going to bet. This feels reasonable to me. He's seen everybody check. Let's clean up some equity with our jack. Like absolutely. Just in case.
He has more information.
He bets 1150, which is even smaller than what I suggested for Xuan. I like the sizing. I think it's good in this scenario. All right.
Here we are.
So as the kid, do you think, we're against a guy who calls himself Corvette Mike. Maybe that's a reason to check raise. Like he's probably been playing a little Corvette Mikey on stream, is my guess so far.
It's the only reason not to check raise that I can think of is if everyone knows that when we're up a lot of money as the kid, we are very careful. You know, and then everyone's like, "Oh God, the kid's raising, I'm out." But I don't even know. Xuan's probably on top of that whatever direction she would need, if that's correct or not. I don't know if Corvette Mike has any sense of that anyway. And I'm just going off his name mostly, and also what's going to happen. The little bits I know about him, I know very little though, so I could be very wrong about him, and I acknowledge this. But it's Texas. People play freaking wild in Texas. People do some wacky ass things in Texas. There's a lot more like bigger bluffing and bigger like raising on all streets. I say this both from watching some of this stuff and also talking to our friend Wonka, who's played a lot in Texas, where like if you have top pair and you bet the river and you get raised, you call in Texas. You just call. You just like auto call. You don't have to think about it. That's just a call in Texas, which I'm like, oh, it is? Okay, that is not true in a lot of other places, right? But it's like an insta call unless you're up against the tightest person of all time in Texas. So that's just another reason where I feel like let's just put some more action in. Like, I don't know if people are going to give us credit for having a big hand just because we're raising on the flop. Like, it looks like we have the ace of spades, or, like, fine. Or, like, just one pair or something. Or we're just losing our mind and taking a shot, which apparently people do a lot too.
Yeah, I think it can't be too bad to raise, and, like... But there's always that fear of missing out, right? He's fearful that, like, a shove is coming on the turn, and he's going to miss out on that if he raises.
I know. And... also, by raising, we almost always knock Xuan out. Now, with Xuan's actual hand, maybe we don't. But with the range that we would assign to her based on how she's played this so far, I would assume Xuan is auto gone. Like, there's nothing to think about. She's gone. So then we need Corvette Mike to have a hand he can stick around with, which is not that likely, right? He's mostly going to have hands that he's either taking a shot with or like 2 nines with a 9 of spades, and he might just fold now. He's like,
he's not taking a shot. It's a dry side pot. He's got something.
Oh, it's a dry side pot. You're right. But like 2 nines with the 9 of spades would be a hand that I would bet as Corvette Mike if it checked to me, right? And but when I got raised, I might be like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm losing to any made hand that's doing this for value. I'm losing to any flush, and I'm behind. I'm beating a hand like ace X or ace of spades X of diamonds or whatever, but I'm never going to know where I am. And it can draw to me at any second. And like, is it worth putting in all my money right now? Because that's sort of what's being asked of me. I might just fold that, right? So I guess as we're talking it through, I think I'm inclined to want to call here rather than raise.
It's just so hard to have a hand that you can continue with unless it's a set against this hand, right? Like you have to be super lucky and they flop the second nuts, or like 9-10 of spades or something like that.
King Jack with the king of spades is not folding. Maybe top pair isn't folding. In general, it's possible they're going to hold on here. Like, stock to pot ratios are such that, like with Corvette Mike just having top pair, he may just be going with this hand.
Let's assume a little bit of being normal for a second and assume that a lot of players are going to fold top pair here, because in a dry side pot like this, like the check raise comes in,
it's a much stronger play. That's really fair. I think we should call. I'm agreeing with you.
I do too, because I think the only hands that are really able to continue against us are hands with the king of spades in them, which is not comfortable and might sometimes find a fold, actually.
That's right, because like when you're bluffing, I'm in trouble. Yeah. But King Jack with the king of spades, that's the dream.
Yeah.
Sets.
Yeah. And no, the real dream is like other spades, right? like two spades in their hand.
Oh,
that's the true. Yeah,
that is pretty good. You're right. That's
So-
really, really good.
the problem with calling against those hands is, of course, if another spade comes, it kills our action. But that's unlikely because those hands hold two spades. When we hold two spades, there's not that many spades left.
Yep.
So I don't think we're losing out too much against those hands by just calling. We're still going to get a lot of action from them down the line.
It feels like also there aren't that many combos of sets for people to have, really. Because, again, Jack, it doesn't feel like Corvette or Xuan really ever has jacks here. Based on
It doesn't
how these
feel like
hands
it, no.
are played. Seems very unlikely. So
Right.
that cuts down on some of the set combos, too. I don't think we really have to worry about it. If the board pairs were like, oh, well, like, too fucking bad. Like, it's not that, there aren't that many sets. Like, whatever. So there isn't like anything to protect against except cards that would kill action. But like you're saying, if we actually are up against a hand like that, we should be able to get action anyway. Like, if they have a set somehow, a spade won't kill action against them. If they have two spades, there aren't that many combos. There aren't that many spades left in the deck. And even if there are, if it checks through on the turn, we might be able to get some value out of the 10-9 of spades on the river if we bet anyway. Maybe. They may, because they have a bluff catcher.
Yeah, so I think calling is probably the play.
I think you're right.
That's what the kid does. The kid calls. Now Xuan is in a weird spot. I think you could fold, call, or raise here as Xuan, depending on your opponents and what you think of them. Like, this is a fine spot to just get out because, like, it feels like there aren't that many good outcomes for us. Like, what are the good turn cards? And if even if it's a relatively good turn card and there's another bet and a call, how do we proceed? It feels sketchy to me.
Well, here's another way to think about it, though. We're getting like 7.5 to 1 to close the action with an overpair against guys who don't have to have it for real. Like, who really have like one spade or just top pair or just nothing and are, like a little something, but not much. Like, like a pair, like Corvette might could have any pocket pair and be betting just to protect his equity, once check to him.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Like, and we get to see the turn card. And if the turn card is not if the turn card's a spade, we're done with the hand, right? If the turn card is not a spade, we have options now. We don't have to check. We can bet ourselves. The pot's going to be basically like almost 1-to-1 stack to pot at this point. Not exactly, but not too far away, right? Like, we have lots of options. So we can see what if the jack pairs, okay, we don't love that. Maybe if it's like a king or a queen, we don't love that because that makes top two for some people. But there's a lot of pretty good cards for us, right? That we're like, well, if we're not crushed, we're in great shape. And now with only one card to come, we're really happy to put in money against single spade hands.
Yeah, all reasonable points. I don't think folding is the right play, but like in certain setups, I wouldn't blame somebody for doing it in this spot.
Right, I agree. I think if we're a lot deeper, it's a harder call to make. But
so do you think Xuan should consider just check raising and like essentially getting it in here?
I think that's possible. I don't think it's crazy to do that. But I do understand the allure of like, well, let's take one off. It's so cheap just to take one off and know where I'm at. Well, not know where I'm at, but like have a lot more information. Because like if a spade comes off, you're like, cool. Because I have to think, Xuan would think once the kid calls, if she check raises, she's not going to just take it down most of the time, right? Like probably she's going to get at least one caller, and probably a spade kills her. So it's not that bad. She's gonna knock out half of the streets just by calling right now, and then she still is. Well, she's second to act, but she can move in all on her own. So I think you can make a case either way. I'm fine with either decision, honestly. I think moving in's okay here, but I don't hate. I think I like calling more, but it's close.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of weird decisions on this flop for all of these players.
I agree for all three. Corvette Mike the least. Corvette Mike's had the most normal decision.
Yeah, pretty easy. Xuan ends up calling. I think I agree that that's probably the play I like the most also. And oh boy, does the kid have a lot of equity compared to the field in this spot. It's amazing.
Insane. They're in so much trouble. They're in so much trouble against the kid.
$9,455 in the pot. $3,400 of that is side pot. The turn is the 4 of diamonds. So the kid no longer has the nuts because it pairs the 4. It is Jack 4, 3, 4 with 3 spades. Xuan has aces. Corvette Mike has Queen Jack.
Yeah.
The kid checks again.
Okay.
I guess at this point that makes the most sense, especially since the flow has been established.
Yeah.
as Xuan, I think we have to make a decision based on who we think Corvette Mike is. Like, is Corvette Mike going to bet again with hands like nines with a nine of spades, or his hand, Queen Jack, like a hand like that?
Right.
If we think he is, I think we should check. If we think he's never betting those hands and is only betting superior hands, well, then I guess maybe we can check too, because then we can just fold. So I like if that were the case, but most players aren't like that.
What she gets to do if she bets though instead is she gets to clean up the equity herself, right? Like,
yeah,
she gets to knock out those single spade hands. It's okay if they call, it's great, but she also gets fold equity against two players, and there's some value there, right? If she checks, it might check through, and everyone just gets a free card, which you don't really want anyone to get a free card now that this is a great card for us as Xuan. Like. How many combos of like full? There's just very few combos of full houses. Someone could have 4-3 suited, I guess. Someone could have pocket threes. There's only one combo of pocket fours now. The other two guys really shouldn't have jacks. Like, we're in great shape against everything but the flops flush, right?
Yep.
So
I mean, the kid can obviously have jacks if he has ace queen suited. I think he can.
I guess he can, but we wouldn't necessarily. It's hard to believe as Xuan that jacks wouldn't put in a raise somewhere pre-flop. Like once it goes call after the king's guy shoves for 1400, it's possible, I guess, but I would not believe that as Xuan. I would think like most of the time this kid has very few combos of jacks as a result, right?
I agree. Well, Xuan ends up checking, and I think it's because she knows who Corvette Mike is, because he's going to bet again with Queen Jack of clubs, which is getting a little sketchy to me. I mean, I think it's okay. But when Xuan overcalls on the flop, I'm not loving my hand that much with the Queen Jack of clubs.
Well, the thing is, we bet very little relative to the pot. Remember, she was getting 7.5 to 1. She can call with some like more questionable stuff right now. By the way, by betting, we may get her off slightly better hands than we have too. Like, what's she supposed to do with like King Jack without a spade on the turn? I think she has to call the flop for 1150. But a real bet on the turn, when we bet into two players, she might just find a fold.
I mean, there's also the kid, right, who called too. Like, everybody's range is getting a little strong here. Remember, we just bet so little though on the flop that we kept weaker hands in and we kept weaker ranges in. Man, I think that is key. If we had bet more on the flop, I would be very inclined to check as Corvette Mike, because we bet so little. I think the kid can have like 2 8s with the 8 of spades in his hand. Like, we bet 1150 and Xuan looks like she's always folding. Of course he can call with 2 8s with the 8 of spades at least once for 1150. You know, like I think we want to put pressure on those hands and get rid of them and take down this pot a lot of the time, or at least charge the single spades. I think we're supposed to bet because we bet so small on the flop. Maybe it just is like a disaster when we get shoved on, but whatever.
Yeah,
it's fine. I think it's fine to bet too. I wouldn't hate checking either.
I think it's okay to check, but I think betting's better.
He goes to third pot. He bets 3,300.
Okay.
I guess in this type of scenario where the pot is so bloated and there's a side pot, we might achieve the same thing with 3,300 as we would with a larger bet in a more traditional pot situation.
Right.
So
because the side pot
I think it's okay sizing.
Yeah. I think it's okay too. We're betting the size of the side pot, right? That seems very reasonable.
Now it feels like a time as the kid to just put the chips in with how it's going. It kind of feels that way to me. How do you feel about that?
Well, why? Let's just talk about why we would and why we wouldn't. Like, what are the pros and cons of this? So, what are you thinking when you say you think it's time to put it in? What are the pros of putting it in now versus calling?
Well, I don't want to lose Corvette Mike on bad river cards for him, and he has bet twice into this. Like, he started by betting into a dry side pot, right, and then he bet again.
Yep. Right.
So he has a worse hand than you might expect with Queen Jack here. You know, so I think a lot of the time he's going to have a spade that might feel obligated to call off with his jack. Mm-hmm. He's going to have 2 spades a decent amount of the time. You know, if the board double pairs or another spade comes, we lose that action.
Yeah.
Xuan is unlikely to be able to continue against a 3,300 anyway, is what it feels like. I'm less worried about her.
That's a great point. I think that's the most important thing about why we should call or raise. It's not about Corvette Mike, really. It's about can we get Xuan to put more money in? If we and raising feels like we're always going to shut her out, and calling. But if we but like she only called 1150 on the flop, and now it's 3,300, and like it seems again like she just doesn't have a hand she can call with here almost ever, right? She feels like she's like Jack 10 suited. She called once or whatever it was, something like that. She called once because she was getting such a good price. She's closing the action, and like now she's just definitely going to fold if we no matter what we do, right? So I like your thinking on let's raise now because of the bad cards that can come and scare off.
Right, and we're out of position against Mike, so like leading the river is weird, and like definitely antenna goes up when that happens.
I mean, it probably doesn't matter if a brick comes, honestly, but still, but we don't know that a brick is coming.
Right. But the kid ends up calling, which I don't hate that play. I just think I prefer a raise. Because it feels like Mike has something relatively strong.
If we know that Mike is the kind of guy who would just be barreling king queen with the king of spades here, then calling is a great idea, right? Because he really might barrel the river, especially if Xuan folds the turn like we would expect her to, not knowing her hand, right? Then we can call, and then we give him all the rope to do it again, where he might even find a fold with the naked king of spades, right? If we raise right now, because he's like, you have some flushes, you have the ace of spades a lot, and then I'm losing to everything. I'm losing to everything right now, and I need to get lucky, and I might be drawing debt. So he might just find a fold if he's thinks about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay. So the kid calls, and I think that's a fine play.
Sure.
All right.
Here we go.
This is just a weird spot for Xuan. Now, she's got 12.8K in front of her. She's got two aces with no spade. Jack 4, 3, 4. 3 spade flop.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like we're winning against the two side pot guys some of the time, like a decent amount of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, sure. Corvette Mike sometimes has a full house. The kid, I guess, sometimes has a full house.
A little bit.
Flop flushes are definitely possible for both players. But also top pair is possible for both players. The kid could have ace jack. Corvette Mike could have the hand that he has. Something like that could be going on. The ace of spades could be in there, although you'd expect to have heard from it by now. But it's possible that it's in there.
I also think we can eliminate some of the flop flushes. Like, I think the kid doesn't have many, like, weaker flopped flushes. I think he'd fast play those at some point. By now, he would have fast played.
Yeah.
He's got the 10-9 of spades. He's almost certainly check raising the turn rather than letting us in and letting another spade potentially come off, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So we can even eliminate some of that, which I think makes our range even stronger, or makes not our range, but it makes their range weaker, I should say, the kids specifically. I think we're not supposed to fold. And then the weird thing is, we're sort of in the same spot that we were on the flop, of like, well, we could call or we could raise. If we think these guys are just top pair / king of spades here a lot, which I think is reasonable to think, moving in is a pretty good idea. Right? Like we might get called by top pair, and we might fold out the king of spades, which would be like what a parlay. Like we might really get that kind of action. Like that would be perfect.
If we move in here as Xuan, we have played this hand as in such a high variance way. Like every decision has been an incredibly high variance decision, which is fine.
Every single one. That's right.
It's totally fine, but it's
I mean, calling is also high variance, but moving is higher. Of course, moving is higher variance. Of course, it is. I think we shouldn't fold. So if we're not folding, do you agree with that? That we just really shouldn't fold against these opponents? I think
based on everything I know about Texas, which is similar to what you know, we probably shouldn't fold. So we have to figure out what's the right decision between calling and shoving here. I think shoving is better based on everything you said. Like we want to shut out the equity at this point. The pot is big enough against that equity, and if they call off with that, that's fine. We just don't want to be playing a guessing game on the river.
Right.
So I think it's good to just, put the chips in and hope that we have the most equity out of anybody who decides to call, if they do. And that would be great.
I think it's good. If I was Xuan, I'd be more worried about Corvette Mike and less worried about the kid, because the kid has played it. Like the only hand the kid should really have here that's problematic. I guess it could be like, I guess he could have a full house, and I guess he could have the nut flush. But like that's it. Like everything else, we're just beating easily, I would think at this point.
Corvette Mike could have a lot of flushes.
Corvette Mike could have a lot of flushes, and he can also have pocket threes. And I guess, there aren't that many combos of 3s and 4s, so like I'm not that worried about it as Xuan. But the flushes is the thing. But it's not easy to flop a flush. It's not easy. There aren't that many combos. Whatever. I think I like moving in. I think ultimately I like moving in. But I agree with you. This has been an insanely high variance play the whole time by Xuan.
How do you think Xuan, and she does move in, and I like it. How do you think Xuan should have played it or would have played it had she had the ace of spades with aces? Let's forget about what the other player's hands are. If the action was the same.
Yeah. Well, that is a great question. Okay, so now we're eliminating a bunch of stuff that is problematic, but also like players are less inclined to call, right, if we move in on the turn, because even if they have the king of spades, they'll be like, oh, like I don't want to be up against the ace of spades here. Versus if we just call and a spade comes off, they may feel really like they have to call a bet with the king of spades, right?
Yeah.
So like I think we're probably supposed to just call if we have the ace of spades. It gives us so much more protection than we have right now.
Yeah, I agree. But she doesn't, and she moves in, and I do think that's the best play here, even though it's just like so high variance. Yeah. It's fine. It might be one of those plays where it's like, this is plus EV, but I usually lose the pot type of plays. It's possible.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of money in the pot, so that makes it, you know, relative to her stack and relative to how much she's put in already. So that's good.
There's a lot of decisions in poker that suck, which is like, I win, I think, a quarter of the time, but that's okay. I accept that I lose this pot. Here's some money, you know. Yeah. And I hate those decisions, but they exist. Anyway,
I love it. I love it because the times when you actually win those pots, when you call on the river because the odds just demand it, and you're like, I almost always lose, and then you win. It's like Christmas morning, you know.
Yeah,
not for me, obviously, but for other people, it's Christmas morning. For you, it's
I thought
like,
you celebrated Christmas. I thought your family celebrated Christmas.
For you, it's like going to like the cholera ward at like, you know, any hospital in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I love the cholera awards.
Cholera ward. The cholera ward.
Cholera ward. Oh, yeah.
The cholera award. Who's getting awarded things for cholera? Like, this is the best cholera of the year? I mean,
this is a real blind spot for you. You don't know anything about this society or all of our events that we have.
You are correct.
Anyway, Xuan moves in.
Okay.
Upon initial inspection, what's about to happen is why I said Corvette Mike lives up to the name he gave himself. Because he calls off. He had about a similar stack to Xuan with the Queen Jack here. Is there any justifying this play?
I mean, the only thing that makes sense that what we can beat here is basically Xuan having like Ace King with the Ace of Spades, Ace Queen with the Ace of Spades. We can beat that, but we can't beat anything else. I really feel
like we would have heard from that on the flop a lot of the time.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird that she would have checked on the flop and then just called even the 1150. But it's possible, at least. That's the only hand we can beat, though. We can't beat anything else except the naked ace of spades, right?
Yeah, there's no other hand she plays like this that we can beat.
I guess she could have ace jack with the ace of spades. I don't even know if she'd move in, though.
That's not good. That's not good
exactly.
for Corvette, Mike.
Right, exactly. I know. So there's not much there. There's very little there for us.
Yeah, I think it's just wishful thinking to call off here with Queen Jack. Like, it's just very hard to find a way that Xuan played the naked ace of spades or the ace of spades in any capacity like this. Any non-naked ace of spades, of course, has a speed already, and we're in complete jail against that hand. By the way, we have to contend with the kid still being there, who did call the $3,300 bet.
Right. I mean, is it possible somehow? We only have Queen Jack too. This is the other thing. It's like I would be worried that Xuan has something like Ace Jack, not with the Ace of Spades, but is moving in now, much like she has aces, and it's just like none of these guys have an overpair, so I'm going to move in. It's basically the same thing. Actually, I block the full house. Is even better with Ace Jack. This is better. I mean, it's harder for them to call because we block a jack, but whatever.
Yeah.
And like if we can call and she just has the Ace Jack without a spade, and we're drawing to 3 outs here, you know, and it's just a disaster.
This does feel like a kicker. This does feel like a kicker matters spot, right? Because I don't think Xuan's going to move in with the Jack 10. I just don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think so either. I think
she just folds.
She can call or fold with Jack 10, but she's very unlikely to move in.
Yeah.
So it feels like we probably just have to let this go, which sucks. But they don't really fold top pair in Texas, is what I was mentioning. And
I know. I mean, he's getting a good price. At least there's that. But like it feels a little punty. He does call off.
How much more does he have when he calls off?
He has 7,755 is how much he calls off.
Yeah, he's putting like almost half a stack, I guess.
Yeah.
So like putting like 5,500 or something. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel good at all. Now he's getting a good price, like you're saying. So this could be like he could be like, hey man, I know I lose a lot, but Sometimes I win, and I'm getting a good price. So there. Of course, he also has to beat, by the way, the dry side pot matters for this stuff now.
Yeah.
The main pot. The main pot matters. We kind of want to win that too. It's hard for us to win all of the pots. And then if we can't win the main also, our price goes way down in terms of the value here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're not winning enough for even with this good price just against Xuan. Forget about the kid for a second. I just don't think we're winning enough. I think we need a jack or a 4 to win against Xuan a lot of the time, or tie. You know, it's
a queen. A queen might do it. Like it turns out it won't.
If
she doesn't
it's
have
ace
many
jack.
overpairs. She doesn't have many overpairs. Remember, she just called the raise. So you wouldn't think as Corvette Mike she has that. But ace jack is staring us right in the face.
Yeah. So I think this is a fold, but he calls.
Okay.
And it's just like
turn. What a spot.
the ranges are strong, but the kid has the nut flush. Like you can't fold this, right?
There's nothing to think about. Like we've already talked about how it's hard for Xuan to have a hand like jacks, right? We think she's almost always going to shut out the other two players with jacks pre-flop.
Yeah.
Okay, both Xuan and Corvette Mike can have pocket 4s or pocket 3s, but there's only 4 combos total of that, right? These players can have other flushes. These players can have just top pair. These players, as we see, Xuan is capable of having an overpair, although we wouldn't give her too many combos of that. I don't think there's anything to think about here. This just feels like super obvious, like get it in and hope you win. Spot at the end.
Well, do you want to have pain for the rest of your life? Because the kid does after he face up folds the nut flush here.
I mean, I can't. This is the kid is up a lot of money and is afraid of losing it, I guess. Like, I don't know what else this could be.
I mean, the action has been kind of insane in this hand. So I guess like if you don't give yourself a moment to think about it, and you just kind of think about how much crazy action has been put in this game and how much money it actually is in your life or something, then like I can see how you would feel like, how can I ever call here? How can I ever be ahead? Like somebody has to have a full house because it does. Like I don't know anything about the kid, so it's not fair for me to assume how he's feeling about his stack in front of him right now. But it does feel a little bit like this is a lot of money in front of him that he doesn't like. He's up a lot of money and he's really interested in protecting that. And he was just really concerned about the board pairing, and it did, and then a lot of action happened.
Yeah. We're getting, I mean, how much money is in this frickin' pot now, though? Like,
I mean, there's 35K in the pot.
God. And it's going to cost us like
7,700.
7,700? That's all we have? No, it's more because Xuan moved in.
No, Xuan moved in for 12.8 over 3,300, so it's going to cost us 12.8 minus 33. Yeah.
9,500.
Yeah.
I mean, we are going to win this pot more than enough of the time to make this the right play, right? We're not winning this pot 25% of the time, right? We're winning way more than that, for sure. And once in a while, we only win the side pot because the main pot goes to pocket jacks or something like that. But like, come on, like we got to. If we didn't want to play, I guess maybe he wanted to let a card come off to make sure the board didn't pair before he put all the money in, and then. Because I was gonna say if we were worried about protecting things, we could have just raised on the flop, and not have to deal with all this stuff one way or the other. We'd have put so much money and we're just getting in it on the turn. Like there's nothing to think about, right? And instead,
I think
we're here.
I think the kid just couldn't fathom. He just couldn't fathom that Xuan would play an overpair like this.
Yeah, I don't blame him. But if she doesn't have an overpair, what's left? She has more flushes than she does. There's only 4 combos of the other stuff. She's got more flushes.
Yeah.
There's not many flushes either, but whatever. The 4 pairing is a good card. Okay, it's not a good card because we don't have the nuts anymore. It's a bad card. But it knocks out some of the set combos, right? I mean, so it's not a good card. Of course it's not a good card. No, it's not. But if we don't think the other two players can have jacks very often, I think it's really hard for Xuan or Corvette Mike to have jacks. We're down to 4 combos of full houses that exist. That's so good.
It looks bad, but I just want to give the kid a little credit. It's in that spot. It is you're maybe a little bit blind, seeing white. It's a difficult spot when it's a lot of money and the action is insane.
If we were deeper and this action happened and it was all in front of us, I think you can make a much more reasonable case to find a fold here, right?
Yeah.
But
the price is a good argument.
No one's really risking that much relative to the pot. Along the way, right? It went 3,300 call, and then Xuan shoves 12, so it's only 9 more. It's That's what just went in. The 3,300 times 3 is what she's putting in on top of it. And then Corvette Mike doesn't have much money back anyway. It's just like it's easy for them to get it in with weaker hands than what we have here. And if Corvette Mike has if Corvette Mike has King Jack with the King of Spades, he's not folding.
I know I just want to have a little sympathy here, because it's tough.
It's easy to say all these things when we're sitting here, we see the cards, and it's like obviously you call. If we were $100,000 deep, it's a much tougher. And the players were really good. It's much tougher, right? If someone puts in a really big raise, maybe not an all in, but someone makes it 45,000 or 30,000. Now you're like, geez, like, do I want to play for 100K stacks? Because that's effectively what I'm agreeing to do if I call this, right?
Yeah.
I might decide to exit right now. I'm only out 4K. I had the nuts. It doesn't look like, I don't know if I have them anymore, but I'm just, like you said, playing a guessing game here. And every time I'm beat, I'm going broke, and so you might decide to protect your stack in that spot. But when we're this short, I think we welcome the aggression. Like we should be looking to welcome the aggression.
I mean, I agree. That's clearly right. But I understand. I've been in spots where it's like,
sure,
geez, this is insane.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes we're beat here, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. We're just not beat so much that we shouldn't be putting the money in. That's all.
Right.
We're beat. We're winning a lot. Like a lot.
So,
probably more than half the time.
I mean, this is just going to be pain for a long time for it to be on stream. He does it confidently, folds it face up.
He's so sure that he's like Phil Hellmuth folding, showing his hand. Like, I know everything that's going on here. Can you believe this? This is crazy. So unlucky for me. And then they're just
they run it twice, and Xuan wins both against both opponents. Corvette Mike loses both, obviously, and the kid would have won both. It's not like the board pairs again or anything like that. It's
insane. It's freaking crazy to watch.
So that's
happen.
He could have won a 42K pot. Instead, he folded. That's real pain. And Xuan wins a 35K pot somehow in this spot where she was like, the perfect thing had to happen, and it did for Xuan. It's like, I don't know if she could have ever had a hand in her life go as well as this hand went. It's so good how well this hand went.
See, like if the kid had ace queen with the ace of spades, right? So just a different queen. And on the flop, he's like being a little careful, decides not to check raise, he just calls. On the turn, he's like, all right, the board paired, it's not great, but I don't think I can fold. I got overs and then a flush draw. I call. Xuan moves in, the other guy moves in, and now he's basically indifferent to calling or not, right? He's getting about the right price. Assuming, by the way, no one has a full house. So actually, he's probably supposed to fold anyway. And then especially if the money matters to him so much, I think that's a much more reasonable spot to find the fold, right? Where it's like, we know we have
where
to
you have ace high instead of the nuts?
Yeah. I'm saying that's where we're like, just a little past indifferent, and we probably should fold. That's where the line actually is. But instead, we don't have the nuts anymore, but we have a very strong hand that absolutely can't fold. And think about what we should be calling with then. Like, what are we defending with here? We can only call with pocket threes and pocket fours. Can we even call with pocket threes if we're folding ace queen? We're putting these guys on full houses. We probably can, because we can give them ace. We can give them one of them the nut flush, I guess now. But like
for Xuan Liu, this is like one of those incredible moments in sports. This is the band is on the field. This is the helmet catch for Xuan Liu. Like
it's incredible when these things happen. Like this kind of stuff happens at the poker table once in a while, right? Something crazy where you just get to benefit in a way that you shouldn't be able to benefit. This is my very quick story of that. It's not like this. It's not like I wouldn't have won, but I was playing Limit Hold'em. I've told you this story many times, you personally, Grant, so just nod and smile.
I'll bear with you.
And blah, blah, blah. We're playing, I think we're playing like it might be 30-60, whatever. So it's not like tiny. I make the nuts on the turn with the straight. I have queen jack. It's 8, 9, 10. So I have the straight. Me and this other kid get into a raising war where he 5 bets the turn. So I decide to just call to let a card come off and make sure I still have the nuts. Because if I put a lot of money in now, I'm not getting free rolled, but like, either we have the same hand anyway, and it doesn't matter, or he's got a set and I can extract more value on the river anyway. The board doesn't pair on the river. I still have the nuts. He bets, and I think to myself, is there any point in raising? I'm like, I should raise. Yeah. So I raise. Sorry, the board is actually 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 4 to a straight out there. So I raise. He puts in another. Oh, no, I raise, and he says, can we just go all in? And like we have, I raise like 60, he makes it 60, I make it 120. we've got like 600 back each or something like that, 700 back, whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, by the way, never ask that question to me. I'm only going to say yes if I have the nuts. If I had anything other than nuts, I'm always going to say no to that, right?
Of course.
Anyway, I say yes, and I say sure. We put our chips on. I'm like, obviously we have the same hand. I turn over my hand, and he has just a naked jack for the second nuts, but like a hand that he would never go all the way with, right? But like, and I just felt like, I don't understand. Like, he should have just called my raise on the raise. He shouldn't have 5-bet me on the turn, by the way, but whatever. Should just called my raise, been out that 120, and saved the $700. Like, but instead he just gave it all to me in a spot that it's limit hold'em. Like, it's designed to, so this never happens, and still it happened, you know? So it's not that, like, Xuan has a better situation because she would have actually lost, but I relate to it a little bit from that hand.
Yeah, no, that's not quite as good as the Xuan situation here, but it's, you know, it's almost a helmet catch. It's pretty good.
It's not bad. It was pretty sweet. I was like, okay, incredible. Yeah.
I would be surprised if Xuan ever gets to win a pot in this fashion ever again in her life. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting hand.
You already sunlight.
Music is my sunlight, and all I need is one mic, and I can show every single MC how it's done right. Every time I come by, I'm bound to leave them tongue-tied. I'm sipping on liquor, a quitter is what I'm not. We got one life, and I took a minor break, but I'm back to claim the throne, and gonna be traveling the globe, and still have time to make it home.